All right. Uh, Hello. I'm Nicholas Bryan-Dunaway. Um, I do ID work. I design, and I love everything design. And today I have Prince Ramteke with me. Thanks for joining me. It was really cool because I did my first video. I was following Prince, and he was following me back on Instagram, and he sent me a message. He said that was really cool that you posted that, and I said, "Oh, thank you." And we got to talking, and he was telling me about him getting into ID, and I just asked him. I said, "Hey, would you like to do an interview and talk a little bit about design?" So that's what we're doing today. I guess Prince, give us a little bit about yourself. Tell everybody who you are.
Hi guys, my name is Prince Ramteke. I am currently doing my graduation project. I am writing my thesis work. I am doing my master's in design from Delhi Technological University. That is a state government university in India. It is situated in New Delhi. I have done my bachelor's in civil engineering from National Institute of Technology, Raipur. That's a central government institute. And I have progressed till now, and I'm working on my graduation project where I'm working on making lamps out of shellac Bengal artistry of Rajasthan. Rajasthan is a state in India, and
Mm.
I really admire that state. I adore that state. So
Mm.
I'm working on that.
That's very
Yeah.
cool.
In my first year, our faculties took a college trip to Rajasthan, and they showed us around the various handicrafts of Rajasthan. And I fell in love with the handicrafts of Rajasthan. And my God, there are what you say. There is Leheria patterns. There
Mm.
are Bagadu prints. There is blue pottery. There is Meenakari, Kundan Meenakari, and there was shellac bangle artistry. And I decided at the time during that trip that I will make something using the handicraft style of Rajasthan. I made that I noted that in my bucket list. Blue pottery was inspired by I think Persian blue pottery,
Okay.
and the kind of patterns that are produced. Oh my God, the forms they explore, the patterns, the colors they explore on that is amazing. So the color profile of it is very different. Like you will see indigo color on a white background. So they can make teapots, they can make flower pots,
Mm.
but it will have that artistic signature of blue pottery.
That's very cool. I talked with another a lady. She was introducing me to a type of it's kind of like a resin. They use it when they make walls in architecture. It's called chukum. It's in South America, but it's made from like a particular type of tree sap. And when they apply it over the surface, it makes this really
Mm,
interesting looking um, texture, and it's like an organic pattern, almost like cellular when they apply it
mm,
to the materials. But it looks exactly like if they were to apply plaster to a wall. It's
mm.
very unique looking, but um, it's interesting the types of things you find around the world that can inspire design. I find that amazing. And I think uh, I think it's really cool when you look outside for inspiration and try and get out and find things out in nature that can give you an aha moment.
Sure.
You know.
Don't you think the designers before us have explored nature a lot and they have created a lot of patterns?
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't you think we should explore the creations of our prior designers, and now we should fuse them and
Mm,
move further ahead? I think AI is doing exactly that.
right. I
It is
think
not
that
taking inspiration from nature. Yeah.
no. I think that's it's like when Art Deco and Art Nouveau and all that stuff came around. Like they even had cubism and everything. Where at first they
Mm-hmm.
were Art Nouveau, they wanted everything to be very organic, and nature inspired, and you could see that in all the kind of lampshades and the architecture and everything that they make, even sometimes in their furniture. And then when you got to Art Deco, everyone was like, okay, we want it to be very simple, like minimal, straight lines, very representative forms. Like we don't need an ornate sculpture. We just want the impression of a human figure or something like that. And I think at this point, I feel like because everybody around the world has access to this great thing called the internet. I mean, even now with AI, um, everybody has exposure to everybody else's inspiration.
Yep.
Like you look at things like Pinterest, and you see what people, in America or maybe even in England or India or China, what they find is appealing and everything like that. And it's slowly it's all merging together. I
Mm.
uh, uh, it's I spoke about this not too long ago. I was posting something asking, what do people think about the Cybertruck, and from like a design standpoint, it's very polarizing. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's both at the same time, because you've got some
Mm.
people who are like, "Wow, it's so different. I love it," and then you've got other
Mm.
people that are like, "It's it's I don't even understand this. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you shape a car like this? Because they're so used to looking at what a car looks like that
Yeah, yeah.
those shapes, that similarity stuff is embedded in their head.
Hmm.
But yeah, um,
Yeah. Because the car designers are thinking about the future. They are thinking about the market of 20 years later.
yeah,
You see, a car is launched in the country, and it is the design language is still relevant after 25 years.
oh
That
yeah,
means the designer was able to think 25 years ahead.
mm-hmm.
It might be the case that we are not able to see it, but the designers at Tesla have seen it.
Mm-hmm. They would,
There is an interesting car you should check out. It's called Tata Nano. So what they did was in 2010 they launched a car that was a mini car, and for it was the cheapest car across the globe. It
mm,
costed 1 lakh rupees. You can convert that to dollars. So it had the micro car aesthetic, but people didn't accept it because the design was completely new, and
mm-hmm.
no one wanted to term themselves like they are buying the cheapest car. They wanted to buy a cheap car, but they wanted to feel that, yeah, we are riding an expensive car. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to be termed as cheap.
Right,
So that product failed. But now India has demand for those micro cars, and a lot of EVs, a small micro EVs, are getting launched in India. So
mm-hmm.
if Nano was launched now, it would have been a great success.
Mm-hmm.
Right product, wrong timing.
That that's interesting that you say that. I remember a few years ago, this was like 2010, 2011. There was a small time there was a small time manufacturer that was trying to create this car called the Elio. It was a three wheeled gas powered vehicle right about at the time when Tesla was trying to come out with the electric vehicle, and hype for electric vehicles was starting to build up. His idea was, I'm going to make a car that it's gas powered, but it's very, very, very efficient. Like he was touting, it was going to get like 84 miles to the gallon. It was just so odd looking.
Awkward. Yeah. It looked like a tuk-tuk or auto rickshaw.
Yep. It never took off, and like for years and years and years he's like, oh yeah, we're streamlining it, we're getting all of our suppliers on board, we're getting it figured out, and it fell flat. And I think part of that is because him being a new guy trying to break into this manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
industry where you've got these giants that have been making them for 100 years, some of them, and they're already well established. They'd figured
Yeah.
out how to make a car and everything like that. And you've got the small time guy trying to get people to buy in with something that
Yeah.
from the get go looked a little bit dated. And
Yeah.
it's it's so you saying that there's people that are like ahead of their time. There's the opposite. There's people that are kind of like behind the time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Not exactly behind the time. I would say there are people in the middle as well. For
Oh yeah.
example, if a if there is a passionate designer, I see a lot of designers making lamp on Instagram, man.
Mm-hmm.
Have you validated the need for a lamp? Have you asked your customers, do they need the lamps? They are just self exploring the forms.
Yeah.
Similarly, the person who designed the three-wheeled car, he did it out of his passion. He never validated whether the customer needs it.
Right.
And that's where education comes in handy. It asks you to validate every time.
Mm-hmm.
before you proceed in the design process. I
Right.
think that's a major learning from my design degree.
Oh, it's and it is very very important, and it's interesting because it depends on where you go to find that type of work at. Like, reason why I'm saying more people need to be aware of industrial design is because the process that is used will spark change in society. It's like when streamlined cars started coming out. Prior to that, everything looked like a horse carriage because that's what cars were inspired from
Yeah,
way back in. And then when streamline came along and they started putting all these panels over it to make it look like a shape, that was a weird time, but you had designers that could say, "Hey, look, this is what you need to do. We don't need to just make another thing because it doesn't do the market any good, right? It doesn't do the company
mm,
any good either. If you make a
yeah,
if you make, like you said, another lamp, there's probably thousands, if not millions, of lamps out there, and
sure.
and if it's just another one in that falls in that range, it's just gonna get lost in the minutia, So,
Hmm.
when did you first realize you wanted to be an industrial designer?
Earlier, I didn't knew about industrial designer, but when I might be 9 or 10 years old, when I used to have clippings of newspaper advertisements where the car companies used to showcase their new launches.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to collect those paper clipping and I used to paste those on a notebook. I think my mother still has kept those notebooks. Yeah. So what I used to do was I used to grab a copy of paper, put it over it, and try to trace the outlines out of it. I didn't know about perspective. My kid brain didn't know about perspective, but side views I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think every guy has done that.
Mm-hmm.
Let it be engineer or anyone. If you are a guy, you have done this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I used to say that I want to become a car designer, even when I didn't knew that car designer was a thing.
Mm.
So when I talk with my uncle and aunts, they say that you used to say you become a designer when you were 10. When I didn't know design existed. So prior to that, I think when I was 7 8 years old, I was surrounded by toys. Like my father surrounded me with volumes of toys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those were not the most expensive ones, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them. So I had a liberty to break a lot of them. So I used to pick out a motor out of them, make try to make something. My mother was a tailor, so she had some students to whom she used to teach stitching. So she used to make stencils out of cardboard, stencils for taking measurement of shoulders, chest, and all.
Mm-hmm.
So my house was filled with cardboard leftover pieces. So I used to fold them and all, and I mimicked the shape of a water cooler, and I placed a motor inside it, and it used to throw air. So my friends were like, "Wow, what have you done?" And all of the uncles and aunts were impressed. I think the appreciation that my uncles and aunts around me have given me must have led me to thinking to become a maker.
they 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 uh they were supportive. So if you had a really crazy idea, you had materials handy, and nobody told you stop
Yeah, yeah,
doing that. Just get out, and, get in,
yeah, yeah,
mess
yeah,
around with it, and play. Right?
yeah.
That's cool.
My father went to office. My mother was busy in doing her tailor work. So I was all alone doing all the folding. And I picked up origami.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So parents of my friends used to call me to their home to teach their kids origami. So I used to make flowers, I used to make birds, I used to make frogs, everything out of origami. And I think I used to get appreciation out of making stuff.
Right. Yep.
And but more, I would say more mature reason for doing industrial design would be when I was in my 10th class. I went to my mamaji's home. Mamaji means brother of your mother.
Okay.
So I went to his house and he showed me a video of Pranav Mistry. So Pranav Mistry has a TED talk. I highly recommend everyone to watch that TED talk. It's called Sixth Sense Technology, and that guy had uploaded it way back. I think 2006. And the technologies he talked in that TED talk are now being implemented into our homes. He talked about smart va- variables in 2006, and now we are all having the smartwatches and all. So that guy really inspired me. So I looked up what were his qualification. So I found out he has done his MDes, Master of Design degree, after his engineering,
You know,
and later he went to do his PhD from MIT. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's
What do you think?
it's interesting how many people I've talked to that ID, although it is a bachelor's degree, it ends up being a secondary program
Hmm.
that people stumble upon. Like it's like this weird,
Yeah.
well kept secret, like all the stuff you were describing earlier, like making stuff out of cardboard and everything like that. I did the exact same thing when I was a kid. Like cardboard,
Yeah.
cardboard and duct tape, you could make anything with it, and and,
Sure.
and you could do that now. And then when you get into this program, they're like, "Hey, let's make some sketch models with cardboard and duct tape." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is what I was doing my entire life. Why don't I already have a bachelor's degree in this?" So
Yeah.
yeah, it's very
We were a kid
interesting.
when we were doing it, and now
Right.
we are supposed to do it in our 20s.
Yep. Yep. It's man, it's
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, but I feel like uh, the more motivation from Pranav Mistry, so I was very inspired, and I thought I will become uh, I will do a master's in design like Pranav. But I had some perceptions because IIT is the most prestigious institute in India, and there was a norm back then that if you do, if you get into IIT, you have a social acceptance that you are the most intelligent person. Like it's like getting admission into an Ivy League.
Mm.
So I thought that I must get into IIT, I must prove myself, then I'll do design. So that was a wrong decision, I feel.
That's
And meanwhile, when I was in 10th class, I feel 10th grade, my I used to see my mother stitch clothes, and she used to hunch down while stitching it. She used to use scissor to cut clothes, and she used to cut hundreds of clothes in a day, a lot of clothes in a day. So her hands used to get red and her fingers used to get pale. So th- I think that was my first encounter with having empathy with someone as a user. So I wanted to design something that would ease my mother's work.
mm-hmm.
So I think that was also a reason to become an industrial designer. I think there is not one reason to become an industrial designer. There are many.
Many. Yeah.